the entire left world mobilized immediately. You had Joe Biden, who rushed to Twitter to tweet out using two fingers, because that's how he do it. He tweeted out, "What happened today to Jussie Smollett must never be tolerated in this country. We must stand up and demand that we no longer give this hate safe harbor, that homophobia and racism have no place on our streets or in our hearts. We are with you, Jussie." And I have good news. Homophobia and racism had no place on our streets because the attacker of Jussie Smollett is going to prison. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris, when she wasn't trying to bail out rioters in the middle of the BLM riots, that would be just a little while later. This is January of 2019. She tweets out, "Jussie Smollett is one of the kindest, most gentle human beings I know." Well, not to Jussie, as it turns out. He was not so kind or gentle to Jussie. "I'm praying for his quick recovery. This was an attempted modern-day lynching." By the way, this tweet is still up. "No one should have to fear for their life because of their sexuality or color of their skin. We must confront this hate." It was an attempted modern-day lynching by Jussie Smollett against Jussie Smollett. Such lynchings have to end. Nancy Pelosi, who now has deleted this tweet, she tweeted, "The racist, homophobic attack on Jussie Smollett is an affront to our humanity. No one should be attacked for who they are or whom they love. I pray that Jussie has a speedy recovery and that justice is served. May we all commit to ending this hate once and for all." Oh, so moving, so moving. Maxine Waters, who has yet to find a race riot that she doesn't love, she tweeted out, "Jussie is my friend, a very talented and beautiful human being." So she's wrong on both of those things. He is not talented and he is not a beautiful human being. It is so hurtful that homophobic haters would dare hurt someone so loving and giving of checks to Nigerian immigrants to beat him up. I'm dedicated to finding the culprits and bringing them to justice. I have some good news, Maxine. Her search was not in vain. She was dedicated, like O.J. Simpson, to finding the real killer. She was dedicated to finding the culprits and bringing them to justice. Jussie did not deserve to be harmed by anyone. Again, I have good news. He was not harmed by anyone, so that's good. Dedicated to finding the culprits and bringing them to justice. By the way, has Maxine Waters ever said this about, an innocent black person killed by a black person, which is the vast majority of black people who are killed in this country? Because it turns out that intra-racial crime is significantly more common than interracial crime. Okay, and then there was Bernie. Bernie sounded off. We could do this all day, gang. I got all the receipts today. Bernie Sanders tweeted, "The racist and homophobic attack on Jussie Smollett is a horrific instance of the surging hostility toward minorities around the country. We must come together to eradicate all forms of bigotry and violence." Here's the thing. The supply of racism and bigotry in America is so low, and the demand on the left is so high that even a completely false, ridiculous on its face story like this had to be treated as gospel truth by the entire left, top to bottom, side to side. I mean, everyone, any expression of doubt was tantamount to a form of heresy. Pete Buttigieg, he tweeted out, "While the struggle for basic hate crime legislation continues here in Indiana, this horrible attack calls all Americans to stand against hatred and violence in all of its forms." I'd finish this tweet, but I'm on paternity leave. And then, of course, there was Kirsten Gillibrand, the one-time presidential candidate. I say one time because it literally was one time. It was like for a minute. She tweeted, "This is a sickening and outrageous attack, and horribly, it's the latest of too many hate crimes against LGBTQ plus IAA /:, little squiggly thing tilde over the N that turns Nina into Niña in Spanish. People and people of color. We're all responsible for condemning this behavior and every person who enables or normalizes it, praying for Jussie and his family. We are all responsible for condemning this behavior and every person who enables or normalizes it." Who has enabled or normalized this behavior, Kirsten Gillibrand? Who would enable or normalize race hoax behavior? Who? Who would do such a thing, Kirsten Gillibrand? Who? And then the irrepressible, the fresh, so freshly McFacehead, Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, representative from Twitch. She tweeted, there's a headline from Entertainment Today that said Jussie Smollett has been hospitalized in Chicago after a possible homophobic and racially charged attack. And she said, "There is no such thing as racially charged. This attack was not possibly homophobic. It was racist and homophobic. If you don't like what is happening to our country, work to change it. It's no one's job to water down or sugarcoat the rise of hate crimes. Also, here I am, sugarcoating anti-Semitism. Rashida Tlaib sounded off as well. When one of the most famous black and gay men in America is not safe, the message is clearer than it ever has been. She was quoting an article from GQ. The dangerous lies spewing from the right wing is killing and hurting our people. Thinking of you, Jussie Smollett, and my LGBTQ plus IA plus LUY $ neighbors. The dangerous lies spewing from the right wing is killing and hurting. I feel like that was not the lie here, but you needed to tell it, didn't you? Didn't you? We'll get to more on this in just 1 second. First, let me tell you about the best Christmas gift of the season. It is the new Kamakoto Japanese steel knife, because these things are just spectacular. Kamakoto makes great Japanese steel kitchen knives using traditional techniques from Japan that have been honed and perfected by generations of knifesmiths. Kamakoto only uses steel sourced from the mills in Japan. Their expert bladesmiths forge and shape raw steel into hardy blades, polishing and sharpening them to an excruciatingly fine edge. Each knife comes in a beautiful heavy-duty ashwood box. It makes sure that the knife is stored safely. It also makes Kamakoto a great gift. Kamakoto is so confident about their knives that each knife comes with a lifetime guarantee. Because of the single bevel edge, Kamakoto knives can achieve an unbelievably sharp edge you just can't get with other knives. They can cut through your ribeye like butter. Hey, so I'm a big fan of making myself an omelet for lunch. And let me just tell you, every time I slice through an onion with these things, it's magical. It's a magical experience. They look great. They're unbelievably durable. They're beautifully weighted, beautifully balanced. Kamakoto is currently having a massive holiday sale. On top of that sale, you can get an additional $50 off any purchase you make with discount code Ben Shapiro. So click the link below or go to kamakoto.com/Ben Shapiro. Use promo code Ben Shapiro. Save an extra $50 today. Okay, and then of course you had the activist groups. You had Color of Change, which issued a statement at the time saying that the attack was a reminder of the real violence black LGBTQ people face every day. Well, it's not a reminder so much of the real violence that they face every day as a reminder of the fake violence that they hate, that they face every day, because it turns out that he was lying, and pretty obviously lying. GLAAD put out a statement at the time saying, Jussie's experience is sadly not unique in today's America. By the way, that's true. Race hoaxes happen on a fairly regular basis in the United States right now because the incentive structure is very much in favor of race hoaxes. This has been happening a lot, shockingly a lot in the United States. This doesn't mean that there aren't hate crimes. Doesn't mean there isn't interracial crime, white on black. Although interracial crime, black on white, is significantly more common. But the race hoax issue is a real issue. And pretending that it's not is ignoring the state of play in the country. Okay, and then of course you had the entire celebrity class. So you had Ariana Grande, who tweeted out, "What happened to Jussie makes me really effing sick to my stomach. I can't believe bleep like this is really still happening every day." I can't believe it either. Because number one, it's not really happening every day. And also because it's not. So that. What kind of world? ? Sending all of the healing energy / love I possibly can and hoping for change. What can we do? Tell me and I'm there. Well, you could, not help propagate a lie. Shonda Rhimes, she tweeted, "We all have a responsibility to rise up against the ignorance and hate out there. If you know who did this to Jussie Smollett, report them to police." I'm on it. I know who did this to Jussie Smollett. Kerry Washington tweeted, "Dear God, She stares up to the heavens, tears pouring down her face. "Why, oh God, why?" Prayers and justice for Jussie Smollett. Justice came for Jussie Smollett, but not in the form. Be careful what you wish for. Zendaya tweeted out, "This is terrifying and heartbreaking. Please pay attention to what's happening here." Well, the problem is we kind of did. That was the problem in this story, because Jussie probably thought, okay, well, I'll tell my tale. Maybe I won't even go to the cops. And then it'll all be like I was a hero. And then everybody was like, well, when you do that, we pay really close attention. And he's like, well, and then you get the Homer Simpson gif of him just backing into a bush. Reverend Al Sharpton, who is always a plausible source when it comes to the veracity of interracial hate crimes. It's not like Al Sharpton, who still has a show on MSNBC. It's not like he actively propagated the lie that a Manhattan DA raped an underage black girl and then scrawled racial slurs on her in feces back in the 1980s. That'd be the Tawana Brawley hoax. Al Sharpton would never be complicit in something like that. So I take his judgment. Really, he has solid judgment on what is true and what is false when it comes to race hoaxes. He tweeted out at the time, "The reported hate attack on my friend and brother, actor Jussie Smollett, is despicable and outrageous. The guilty must face the maximum." I come bearing glad tidings, Reverend Al. The guilty must face the maximum. Viola Davis tweeted, "OMG, double exclamation point. This is why the LGBTQ plus IAOP, open bracket, close bracket, backslash, double quotation mark, caret, little weird thing above the option button. This is why that community continues to fight to be seen and protected against hate. We all have to take this racist and homophobic attack to violence very personally. My arms are around you, Jussie Smollett. You are loved." Well, the good news for Jussie Smollett is that Jussie Smollett's arms were also around Jussie Smollett when Jussie Smollett was attacking Jussie Smollett in the middle of a hate crime against Jussie Smollett. Ellen DeGeneres tweeted about it. She said, "I'm sending him and his family so much love today. So much love." Cher's was pretty great. Cher tweeted out, the best thing about Cher's Twitter account is that she's so clearly drunk when she writes these tweets. Like the caps lock goes on, and you have to imagine when Cher tweets these things, that the caps lock button goes on, and she knows about halfway through the tweet that it's on. She's like, "Oh, emoji." So here's what she tweeted. "Jussie Smollett, Empire actor, reportedly attacked in possible hate crime. NPR. Villainy. Racism. Homophobia. Promoted by most infamous clown emoji. In world emoji is the poison that kills American flag. Period. No space. White only is not right. Period. American flag is purple of color. Praying hands. GOP goes down with ship. Digity. Small digity." Cher. It's that sort of insight that makes you such a wondrous addition to America's political discourse. So you had the entire political infrastructure that came to Jussie's defense. You had the entire entertainment infrastructure that came to Jussie's defense. You had prominent members of the media who were helping out. As it turns out, Don Lemon was texting with Jussie and telling Jussie that the police didn't believe him, which seems to be kind of a violation of journalistic ethics. You had places like GQ writing articles titled "The Racist, Homophobic Attack on Jussie Smollett is America's End Game." End game. And by the way, they didn't present it as an opinion piece. Originally, they presented it as just a journalistic piece. Then later, they were like, "Oh yeah, it's an opinion piece." The editor's notes on this are pretty spectacular. The editor's note, 222. In the original version of this piece, GQ made 2 errors in editorial judgment. We failed to clearly present the post as an opinion piece. And we regret applying unfounded political motivations to then breaking news with the original headline. We have altered the headline. Update. Jussie Smollett was arrested. Update. The story is fast moving. We're keeping an eye on the news as it develops. Whoopsie doodle. But again, the entire piece is predicated on the idea that Jussie Smollett is representative of black men in America and gay men in America, and none of that is true. None of that is true. But that was the narrative. That's why they did this. If it were not a narrative story, it wouldn't matter. And by the way, it is important to remember that Jussie was part and parcel of the left-wing infrastructure. Okay, he was a very political actor. He was always political. And he kind of fell out of prominence because the Obamas were no longer in office, and so him hanging out with Michelle Obama just wasn't the same. But I mean, this is a guy who literally went dancing with Michelle Obama, right? This is a person who is very political. I mean, here's some video of him dancing with Michelle Obama back in 2018. How the mighty have fallen. Here he was dancing with Michelle Obama 1 year before he faked a hate crime against himself. By the way, it wasn't just that he danced with Michelle Obama. As it turns out, at the time, Tina Chen's longtime friend was not surprised that the former Obama administration aide helped connect Jussie Smollett's family with a top Illinois prosecutor. Weeks before a grand jury indicted Smollett on the theory he falsely reported being the victim of a hate crime, relatives of the actor had expressed to Tina Chen concerns about the investigation by Chicago PD. Getting the right person to take those sorts of concerns seriously has been a hallmark of Tina Chen's career, highlighted by a stint as then First Lady Michelle Obama's chief of staff. So she reached out, Michelle Obama's chief of staff, to prosecutors to try and work on behalf of Jussie Smollett. Chen said her contact with Kim Foxx on behalf of Smollett's family was not intended to influence the case outcome. Oh, sure, it wasn't. Shortly after Smollett reported he was attacked as a family friend, I contacted Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx, who I also know from prior work together, she said. My sole activity was to put the chief prosecutor in the case in touch with an alleged victim's family who had concerns about how the investigation was being characterized in public. So that was how tied in Jussie Smollett was to the infrastructure. We're in a battle for the culture and for our values. Like and subscribe to help keep our videos on the front line of the fight and top of your feed.